No longer. Alimony, palimony. It's all financial. Love's an illusion.
It's the only illusion that counts, my friend.
Says who?
Anyone who's ever been in love.
Every day, I share another story from the Golden Age, a quiet return to the moments that shaped an era we still feel today. If you'd like to help keep these memories alive, you're welcome to subscribe. It asks nothing of you, yet it means more than you know. Thank you for being here. Now, let us begin. In 1985, a magazine article placed a label on him that followed for years, the so-called Brat Pack title that Andrew McCarthy has said nearly derailed his career. He was considered the dream figure of the 80s, the gentle presence, the dependable choice, the romantic lead in films like Pretty in Pink. Yet beyond the spotlight, life was far less graceful. He was relying on drinking, finding it hard to connect with others, often sensing he was pretending his way through the world. Then, in the early 2000s, he stepped into something entirely different, far from Hollywood's rhythm. And when he eventually returned, it was in a form few expected. So what truly happened to Andrew McCarthy? Fade to black. Andrew Thomas McCarthy was born on November 29, 1962, in Westfield, New Jersey, a quiet suburb where dreaming boldly was not the usual path. His father worked in investments, and his mother painted, yet McCarthy has said he always felt a quiet space inside him, something he could not quite name. He has often described himself as shy and unsure, someone who never quite felt he belonged. Acting became an escape for him, or perhaps a doorway into life itself. He enrolled at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, studying under some of the same teachers who once guided legends like De Niro and Pacino. But McCarthy was never drawn to strict methods or heavy realism. What he wanted was simpler. He wanted to feel something, to slip into another person's world for a moment. His first meaningful break arrived in 1983 with a coming-of-age drama where he appeared alongside Jacqueline Bisset and a young Rob Lowe. It wasn't a major success, but people noticed him. His blue eyes and that quiet, thoughtful expression made casting directors imagine him as a romantic lead. And in 1985, that is exactly what he became. He was cast in Heaven Help Us, a modest drama set in a Catholic school in the 60s. It wasn't a major hit either, but it carried him into the right circles. Directors appreciated him, producers trusted him. He was steady, professional, and the camera favored him. Yet even then, McCarthy felt uncertain, as if he were the only one without a clear map, quietly carrying the sense that he was simply pretending. That feeling of being an imposter would remain with him for years. Then, 1985 changed everything. Andrew McCarthy joined the cast of St. Elmo's Fire, Joel Schumacher's ensemble story about recent college graduates learning how to move into adulthood. The cast included Emilio Estevez, Rob Lowe, Demi Moore, Judd Nelson, Ali Sheedy, and Mare Winningham, nearly every rising actor under 25. The film performed respectably, but what followed was far more powerful. In June of that year, New York Magazine published David Blum's article, Hollywood's Brat Pack. It was meant to be a profile of Emilio Estevez, but it became something far harsher. The young cast was portrayed as shallow, privileged, and interchangeable. Blum gathered them under a single, dismissive label. McCarthy has said that the article felt like a kind of sentence handed down without warning. Almost overnight, he was no longer simply Andrew McCarthy. He was Andrew McCarthy, Brat Pack member. And once a label settles on someone in Hollywood, it begins to speak before they ever enter the room. Even so, the roles did not stop. In 1986, he starred opposite Molly Ringwald in Pretty in Pink as Blaine McDonough, the well-off young man who falls for an artistic girl from a more modest world. McCarthy brought a quiet complexity to Blaine, a subtle sense of discomfort, as if the character knew he should be better than the expectations around him. The film became a major success, placing McCarthy firmly in the center of audiences' affection. He became the dependable figure once more, the person viewers wanted to see succeed. But something distinguished him from many of his peers. He seemed to resonate with everyone. While certain actors appealed mainly to young women or primarily to young men, McCarthy managed to bridge both. Rob Lowe carried the polished, unreachable charm of a teen idol, which drew admiration but also a sense of distance. McCarthy, by contrast, felt approachable. His presence was calm, modest, even gently self-effacing, which made him unexpectedly compelling. Then came Less Than Zero in 1987, and the tone of his career shifted. Based on Bret Easton Ellis's novel, the film offered a stark, uneasy look into the lives of wealthy Los Angeles teenagers losing their direction. McCarthy played Clay, a college student returning home to find his closest friend, portrayed by Robert Downey Jr., caught in a cycle of harmful choices and deep personal struggle. It was the most unguarded performance McCarthy had ever given, and he later said it felt like the most truthful. At the time, he was relying on drinking more than he wished to admit, not to the extreme shown on screen, but enough to recognize the quiet emptiness that shaped Clay's world. Critics dismissed the film as too polished, too Hollywood, but McCarthy understood the hollow stillness beneath it. For him, the role was less performance and more reflection. Later that same year, he starred in Mannequin, a lighthearted romantic comedy about a young man who develops a connection with a store mannequin that magically comes to life. The film was whimsical, playful, and entirely different from what he had just done. It became a cult favorite and earned over $40 million, proving that audiences loved seeing him in unexpected places. That was the essence of Andrew McCarthy in the 80s. He was everywhere, yet somehow hard to define. His face appeared on posters across the country, but even he wasn't sure who he was beneath all of it.
McCarthy has spoken about this period with striking honesty. Hollywood no longer knew where to place him once he no longer looked like a teenager. He wasn't shaped like a traditional leading man, nor did he fit the mold of a character actor. He had been cast as the gentle romantic figure for young audiences, and when that chapter closed, the opportunities closed with it. In 1988, he reunited with Molly Ringwald for Fresh Horses, a darker drama about a college student drawn to a young woman from rural Kentucky. On paper, it seemed like a natural echo of what had once worked so well in Pretty in Pink. But audiences didn't come, critics overlooked it, and the spark that once defined their pairing simply wasn't there. It became clear that the era that had lifted him was quietly slipping away. He reached for more serious material with Kansas, portraying a wanderer who becomes entangled in the wrong company, but the film barely left an impression. He continued working, yet the roles grew smaller. Weekend at Bernie's in 1989 became an unexpected success and eventually inspired a sequel, but McCarthy later admitted he took the role for practical reasons rather than passion. Even with the film's later cult following, at the time it felt like a step sideways rather than forward. In 1991, he starred in Year of the Gun, a tense political drama set in 1970s Italy, but it made little impact. He appeared briefly in The Joy Luck Club in 1993, a beautifully received ensemble film, though his presence was modest. Getting In 1994 passed quietly. Dream Man in 1995 was released straight to video. McCarthy has described this stretch of his life as a time of deep confusion. He had spent his 20s being recognized everywhere, hearing that he was exceptional, and then, almost without warning, the attention vanished. Auditions slowed, calls stopped, and when opportunities did appear, The roles felt distant, or perhaps he simply couldn't find himself within them anymore. He often speaks of feeling invisible, not because people forgot him, but because he no longer knew how to define himself. To escape that sense of being stuck, he began traveling. At first, it was a simple attempt to step away, but with time, it became something much more meaningful. He started writing about the places he visited, not as an actor seeking another spotlight, but as a person searching for the next version of his life. Quietly, almost unexpectedly, the writing became a lifeline. In the early 2000s, Andrew McCarthy did something rare for someone in Hollywood. He stepped away from acting and created an entirely new path. He began writing travel essays, small personal reflections meant to trace where he had been and where he hoped to go. Editors soon noticed that his voice was different. His writing wasn't polished for effect or designed to impress. It was sincere, reflective, and at times gently uncomfortable. He has also published several books, including The Longest Way Home in 2012, a memoir about traveling the world in search of something he couldn't quite name, and Just Fly Away in 2017, a young adult novel. But McCarthy has always said that travel writing wasn't a pivot or a return to relevance. It offered him a sense of purpose that acting never truly gave him. On screen, he had spent years trying to become whatever others needed. On the page, he could finally be himself. Around this time, he began directing, mostly television rather than feature films. He worked on shows such as Gossip Girl, Orange is the New Black, The Blacklist, Grace and Frankie, Dead to Me, and many others, contributing to dozens of episodes across a wide range of series. He has said that directing appeals to him because it is not about being seen, it is about guiding a story, collaborating, and shaping something that feels meaningful. By then, McCarthy no longer chased fame, he simply wanted to feel genuinely useful. His personal life carried its own quiet lessons, shaped by connection and by distance. He married Carol Schneider in 1999, and together they had 2 children, Sam and Willow. The marriage ended around 2005. Carol later shared that he struggled to be emotionally present, that he kept people at arm's length, moving away from closeness the same way he had stepped away from many parts of his life. McCarthy got married again in 2011 to Irene Barclays. They have 1 daughter together. McCarthy says this marriage feels different, not because he became someone new, but because he finally stopped trying to appear as someone he wasn't. In his 2021 memoir, Brat, he spoke openly about his long struggle with alcohol. He wasn't the kind of public figure who made headlines for dramatic incidents. There were no scandals, no sudden crises. He simply drank every day for years, using it to soften the quiet belief that he somehow wasn't enough. Fame in your 20s can shape a person in ways that are difficult to express. You are told you are extraordinary, yet you don't feel that way. You are told you have everything, yet you feel a lingering emptiness. Slowly, you begin to think you are the one at fault, that others understand life in a way you do not, and that you are only pretending to keep up. For a time, alcohol made that uncertainty fade. Eventually, he stepped away from it. He doesn't describe a dramatic turning point. There was no sudden collapse, no breaking moment. It was simply a gradual understanding that he didn't want that path any longer. He has also spoken openly about therapy, about learning to stay present with uncomfortable emotions, and about growing older has brought a kind of ease because he no longer feels responsible for everyone's expectations. And perhaps that is the heart of his story. Not that he escaped fame, but that he stopped letting it shape his life. In 2024, McCarthy went a step further by directing Brats, a Hulu documentary that brought together the remaining members of the Brat Pack: Demi Moore, Emilio Estevez, Ali Sheedy, Rob Lowe. They gathered not to recreate old memories, but to speak honestly about that time. No gloss, No bitterness, simply clarity. McCarthy doesn't condemn Hollywood, but he doesn't idealize it either. He described the industry of the 80s as both thrilling and isolating. You were told you were special, but only for as long as you remained valuable, only for as long as people still wanted you. He has spoken about how transactional the environment felt, how relationships were shaped by usefulness, and how quickly people drifted away when you no longer held the same shine. Yet he is grateful for the path. That rise, the quiet fading, and the rediscovery of something entirely new taught him that a sense of self cannot come from outside approval. It must be built from a quieter, deeper place. He remains connected to the industry, but now on terms that feel more grounded. He directs television because he enjoys shaping stories. He writes because it steadies him. He travels because it reminds him that the world stretches far beyond cameras and sets. That is the quiet ending he earned. Not one built on fame or redemption or sudden revelation, but on a simple truth. Andrew McCarthy did not vanish. He merely stepped away from the person the world expected him to be. He chose not to pretend that the 80s were the brightest years of his life, because they were not. Instead, he became a traveler, a writer, a director, a husband, a father, a man who finally learned how to be present in his own story. He spent his 20s being told he was special, his 30s wondering why he could not feel it, and his 40s and 50s shaping a life that no longer relied on anyone else's approval. The label that once cast such a long shadow nearly fractured him, yet it never defined the man he eventually became. If his journey touched a memory of your own, I invite you to share your thoughts below, perhaps your favorite role of his, or the part of his path that stayed with you. And if this story brought you a moment of reflection, feel free to like the video, comment, and subscribe for more chapters from the past. See you in the next story.